Her manicured fingers fumbled with the door handle of what she thought was her black Mercedes, but when she slid into the worn fabric seat and saw calloused hands on the steering wheel, she whispered, "Please don't hurt me," never expecting those 4 words would save them both. The rain drummed against the windows of Meridian Financial Tower as Victoria Ashworth signed the final documents that would close another multi-million-dollar deal. At 34, she had built her investment firm from nothing, transforming herself from a scared girl who once slept in shelters into a woman whose net worth could buy small countries. The transformation had cost her everything soft about herself, every vulnerable edge filed down to corporate precision. "Ms. Ashworth, your car is waiting," her assistant chirped from the doorway, tablet clutched to her chest like armor. Victoria nodded without looking up, her attention still caught on the legal documents. Another property acquisition, another family displaced, another number in her portfolio. She told herself it was just business, but lately, the hollow feeling in her chest had grown too large to ignore. The elevator descended 43 floors in silence. Victoria studied her reflection in the polished steel doors, sharp black suit, hair pulled back so tight it stretched the skin around her temples, diamond earrings that cost more than most people's cars. She looked successful. She looked untouchable. She looked empty. The parking garage echoed with the click of her heels against concrete. Level B3, Space 47. Her black Mercedes S-Class waited in its assigned spot, engine running, just as she'd arranged. The rain had followed her underground somehow, dripping from pipes and ventilation systems, creating a symphony of loneliness that seemed to follow her everywhere. 20 blocks away, Marcus Rivera adjusted the rearview mirror of his borrowed car and checked the time. 6:47 p.m. His daughter Sophia would be waiting at the community center, probably watching the door for his familiar silhouette. At 8 years old, she still believed her father could fix anything, still looked at him like he hung the moon. Marcus wished he felt half as capable as Sophia thought he was. The car, his brother's old Honda Civic, wheezed as he turned the corner onto 5th Street. The heater didn't work, and his breath formed small clouds in the cold air. He'd been driving for 3 days straight, working for the rideshare company, trying to scrape together enough money for Sophia's school supplies and the overdue rent notice that sat crumpled in his jacket pocket. His phone buzzed with another ride request. Airport pickup. The fare would be good, but it meant disappointing Sophia again. Marcus stared at the screen, thumb hovering over accept. How many nights had he chosen survival over being present? How many times had he seen that flash of disappointment in his daughter's eyes before she forced a smile and said she understood? He declined the ride. Tonight, he would keep his promise. Tonight, they would work on her science project together, and he would remember what it felt like to be the father she deserved instead of just another man drowning in the machinery of economic necessity. Back in the parking garage, Victoria's phone rang as she approached her car. The caller ID showed Mother, a contact she hadn't answered in 6 months. Eleanor Ashworth had never forgiven her daughter for choosing money over family, for becoming exactly the type of person who had once evicted them from their small apartment when Victoria was 12. "You've become what you once hated," her mother had said during their last conversation. "And the worst part is, you know it." The call went to voicemail. Victoria's mother's voice echoed in the concrete chamber. "Vicky, honey, I know you're busy, but your father. The doctors say it's stage 4. I thought you should know. He keeps asking when you're coming home." Victoria's hand trembled as she ended the call. Stage 4. The words hit her like physical blows. James Ashworth, the man who had worked 3 jobs to keep food on their table, who had read her bedtime stories even when exhaustion made his voice shake, who had taught her that character mattered more than money, was dying. She leaned against what she thought was her car, her perfectly constructed world suddenly feeling like tissue paper in the rain. When had she stopped calling him? When had success become more important than the man who had sacrificed everything so she could have choices? The car door was unlocked. Victoria slid inside without really looking, muscle memory guiding her movements. She needed to get home. She needed to book a flight to Cleveland. She needed to remember how to be a daughter instead of just a profit margin. But the seat felt different. Lower. The leather was worn, patched with duct tape in places. And there were hands on the steering wheel, male hands, rough with calluses, wearing a wedding ring that had seen better years. Victoria's blood turned to ice water. In her distracted state, she had gotten into the wrong car. And she wasn't alone. Marcus had been checking his phone when the passenger door opened. He looked up to see an elegant woman in an expensive suit sliding into his car, her face pale with shock. For a moment, they stared at each other, two strangers caught in a moment that would change everything. "Please," Victoria whispered, her voice smaller than it had been in 20 years. "Please don't hurt me." What do you think would have happened if you were in Marcus's shoes? Have you ever experienced a moment where everything changed in an instant? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The silence stretched between them like a taut wire, ready to snap. Victoria's manicured fingers gripped her purse so tightly her knuckles went white, while Marcus sat frozen, his calloused hands still resting on the steering wheel. The rain continued its relentless percussion against the windshield, each drop amplifying the tension in the small space. "Ma'am," Marcus said softly, his voice careful and measured, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." Victoria's breath came in short, sharp bursts. Her mind raced through every self-defense article she'd ever read, every news story about carjackings in the city. But as she looked at the man beside her, something didn't fit the narrative her fear was writing. His wedding ring caught the dim garage lighting, not expensive, but worn smooth by years of love. A child's drawing was taped to his dashboard, a stick figure family under a rainbow, "I love you Daddy" scrawled in purple crayon. "I don't have much cash," Victoria whispered, her voice trembling. "But my purse. There's maybe $300. You can have it. Just please." Marcus turned to face her fully, and she saw something in his dark eyes that made her words die in her throat. Not malice. Not greed. Just profound sadness and understanding. "Ma'am, I'm not going to hurt you," he said, his voice gentle as morning rain. "But this is my car. Well, my brother's car. I think you got confused." Victoria blinked, really looking at her surroundings for the first time. The worn upholstery, the crack in the dashboard held together with electrical tape, the air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror that couldn't quite mask the scent of too many fast food meals eaten on the run. This definitely wasn't her Mercedes. Oh God. She pressed her palms against her face. "I'm so sorry. I thought, the parking space, my car." "It happens," Marcus said, though they both knew it didn't. Not like this. Not in a way that left a woman in a $1,000 suit sharing space with a man whose shoes had holes worn through the soles. Victoria looked up at him through her fingers. "You must think I'm horrible. Just assuming that I was going to rob you because I don't look like I belong in your world?" Marcus's voice held no accusation, just weary acceptance. "Lady, I've been getting those looks my whole life. From store clerks, from cops, from people like..." He stopped himself. "People like me," Victoria finished quietly. Marcus nodded. "People like you." The honest acknowledgement hung between them. Victoria felt something crack open in her chest, not breaking, but opening. When was the last time someone had spoken to her without agenda, without trying to please or impress or manipulate? When was the last time someone had simply been real? "My father is dying," she said suddenly, the words escaping before she could stop them. "Stage 4 cancer. I haven't spoken to him in 6 months because I was too busy making money to remember I had a heart." Marcus studied her face, really looked at her, not at her expensive clothes or jewelry, but at the woman underneath. He saw something familiar there, the exhaustion that came from carrying too much weight alone. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "That's hard." "Is it?" Victoria laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I've spent so long building walls, I don't know if I remember how to feel anymore. Earlier today, I approved an eviction notice that will put a family on the street, and all I thought about was the profit margin. What kind of person does that make me? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching the rain create rivers on the windshield. The kind of person who's forgotten they were once that family, he said finally. Victoria's breath caught. How could this stranger see her so clearly when she'd spent years hiding from herself? I should go, she whispered, reaching for the door handle. Should you? Marcus asked. Or should you sit here for a minute and remember that you're human? Victoria paused, her hand on the cold metal of the door handle. Through the rain-streaked windows, she could see her actual car parked 2 spaces over, waiting in its assigned spot like a monument to her organized, empty life. She could get out, drive home to her sterile penthouse, and pretend this moment never happened. She could continue being Victoria Ashworth, successful businesswoman, untouchable and alone. Or she could stay. My name is Victoria, she said, settling back into the worn seat. Marcus, he replied. And I think we both ended up exactly where we needed to be tonight. Sometimes the wrong turn leads us to the right place. What's the most unexpected encounter that changed your perspective? Share your story below. I'd love to hear how a stranger became a blessing in your life. So what's your story? Victoria asked, surprising herself with the question. She couldn't remember the last time she'd asked someone about their life without calculating how the information could benefit her. Marcus glanced at the child's drawing on his dashboard. Single dad. Work rideshare to pay the bills. Tonight was supposed to be different. I was going to help my daughter with her science project instead of chasing fares until midnight. He paused. Some days I feel like I'm failing her. How old is she? 8. Sophia. She's. Marcus's face transformed when he spoke about his daughter, years of exhaustion melting away to reveal the man he was when the world wasn't crushing him. She's everything good I ever did right. Smart as hell, kind to everyone, believes her old man can fix anything. And can you? Marcus laughed, but it was hollow. Can't fix the rent being 3 months behind. Can't fix her mother walking out 2 years ago because poverty wasn't the life she signed up for. Can't fix the fact that Sophia pretends not to be disappointed when I miss another school play or parent-teacher conference because I'm working. Victoria felt something twist in her chest. But you're trying. Trying doesn't pay for groceries. They sat in silence, 2 people from different worlds discovering the weight they both carried was remarkably similar. Victoria thought about her father, lying in a hospital bed in Cleveland, surrounded by nurses instead of the daughter who had chosen board meetings over bedtime stories. Can I ask you something? Marcus said. And I don't mean any disrespect, but how do you live with it? Live with what? Having so much when others have so little. I drove past your building earlier, Meridian Financial. Saw your name on the directory. Victoria Ashworth, CEO. That's you, right? Victoria nodded, feeling naked under his honest gaze. You probably make in a day what I make in a year, Marcus continued. Maybe more. And I'm not saying you don't deserve it, I don't know your story. But how do you sleep at night knowing there are kids like Sophia going to bed hungry while you're, I don't know, buying another car? The question hit like a physical blow, not because it was cruel, but because it was fair. Victoria had spent years insulating herself from this reality, surrounding herself with people who reinforced the myth that wealth was virtue, that success justified any cost. I don't sleep well, she admitted quietly. I take pills to fall asleep and drink coffee to stay awake, and I fill every moment with work because when it's quiet, I remember who I used to be. Who were you? Victoria's throat tightened. I was Sophia. 8 years old, watching my father work himself to death trying to keep us housed and fed. Listening to my mother cry herself to sleep because she couldn't buy me school supplies. I was the kid whose electricity got shut off, who wore the same dress to school 3 days in a row, who learned that being poor meant being invisible. Marcus's expression softened. So you decided never to be invisible again. I decided never to be powerless again. But somewhere along the way, I became the person who holds the power over families like mine used to be. I became the landlord who evicts, the boss who cuts benefits, the investor who prioritizes profit over people. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, mascara smearing. I became everything I hated. But you know it, Marcus said. That's something. Is it enough? Before Marcus could answer, his phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it and his face fell. Sophia? Victoria asked, reading his expression. The community center is closing early. Plumbing issue. She's been waiting for 2 hours. He looked at Victoria, torn between politeness and paternal urgency. I should. Go, Victoria said immediately. Go get your daughter. But as Marcus started the engine, Victoria felt something she hadn't experienced in years. She didn't want to be alone. The thought of returning to her empty penthouse, of sitting with her mother's voicemail and her father's mortality, filled her with a fear more profound than any she'd felt in a stranger's car. Marcus, wait, she said. What if I came with you? He paused, his hand on the gear shift. Ma'am, I appreciate the gesture, but Sophia doesn't need some rich lady feeling sorry for us. That's not. Victoria struggled for words. I don't want to feel sorry for you. I want to remember what it feels like to care about someone else's problems more than my own. I want to remember what it feels like to be human. Marcus studied her face, searching for signs of the condescension he'd experienced from well-meaning wealthy people before. But all he saw was genuine need, not to give charity, but to receive something money couldn't buy. She's going to ask a million questions, he warned. Good. I haven't had a real conversation in months. She'll probably want to show you her science project. It's about solar systems, and she's been working on it for weeks. Victoria felt tears threaten again, but these were different, not born of grief or regret, but of anticipation. I'd like that. Marcus put the car in reverse. Then let's go pick up my daughter. As they drove through the rain-soaked streets, Victoria watched the city transform outside her window. Not the sterile view from her penthouse or the sanitized route between her office and home, but the real city, the one where people like Marcus fought daily battles for dignity, where children like Sophia learned early that love was the only currency that mattered. For the first time in years, Victoria Ashworth was heading towards something instead of running away from it. The Roosevelt Community Center squatted like a beacon in the heart of the neighborhood, its fluorescent lights cutting through the evening gloom. Despite the building's worn exterior and the chain-link fence that surrounded the small playground, Victoria could see why this place mattered. Through the rain-streaked windows, she glimpsed children's artwork covering every available wall surface, handmade posters advertising reading groups and after-school programs, and a trophy case filled with small victories that meant everything to the families who achieved them. Marcus parked the Honda in front of the main entrance, and Victoria saw her immediately. A small girl with dark curls pulled back in a ponytail, pressed against the glass door like a flower seeking sunlight. The moment Sophia spotted her father's car, her face exploded into a smile that could have powered the whole building. That's her, Marcus said unnecessarily, his voice thick with pride and love. That's my whole world. Victoria watched as Sophia burst through the doors, backpack bouncing, completely oblivious to the rain as she ran toward them. But she stopped short when she saw Victoria in the passenger seat, her child's intuition immediately recognizing that something was different about tonight. Marcus rolled down his window. Hey, baby girl. Sorry I'm late. It's okay, Daddy. Mrs. Rodriguez waited with me. Sophia's eyes darted curiously to Victoria. Who's your friend? Victoria felt her throat close up. When was the last time someone had called her a friend? When was the last time the word had meant anything more than a networking contact or a strategic alliance? This is Victoria, Marcus said, getting out of the car. Well, it's complicated. Sophia approached Victoria's window with a fearless curiosity that only 8-year-olds possessed. Hi, Victoria. I like your earrings. Are those real diamonds? Sophia, Marcus said quickly, but Victoria held up her hand. They are, Victoria said, removing one of the earrings and examining it as if seeing it for the first time. They cost more than your father's car. Isn't that silly? Sophia tilted her head, considering this information with the seriousness of a philosopher. Maybe. But they're very pretty. Do they make you happy? The question was so innocent, so direct, that Victoria felt like she'd been struck by lightning. Do they make you happy? When was the last time anyone had asked her that? When was the last time she'd asked herself? No, Victoria said quietly. They don't. Then why do you wear them? Marcus opened the back door for Sophia, shooting Victoria an apologetic look. Baby girl, sometimes adults do things that don't make sense. But Victoria was staring at the earring in her palm, this tiny object that represented everything wrong with her life. She'd bought them to celebrate a particularly ruthless acquisition, a family-owned bakery she'd forced out of business to make way for a corporate chain. She'd worn them like a badge of honor, proof of her power and success. Now they felt like shackles. Sophia, Victoria said suddenly, would you like to have these? Victoria, no, Marcus said quickly. You can't just. Please, Victoria interrupted, turning in her seat to face the little girl. I think they'd look better on you. Sophia looked between the adults, sensing undercurrents she couldn't understand. But they're yours. The best things in life are the ones we give away, Victoria said, and as the words left her mouth, she realized she was quoting her father, something he'd told her when she was Sophia's age and had reluctantly shared her lunch with a hungry classmate. Sophia accepted the earring with a reverence children reserve for truly precious things. Thank you. But I don't have pierced ears yet. Then maybe when you're older, you'll remember this moment, Victoria said. And maybe you'll remember that it's not what we own that makes us rich, it's what we're willing to share. Marcus was staring at Victoria with an expression she couldn't read. Why are you doing this? Victoria looked at Sophia, this beautiful child who radiated joy despite growing up with so little, and then at Marcus, this man who worked himself to exhaustion but still found time to care about a stranger's pain. They were everything she'd forgotten how to be. Because, Victoria said, her voice stronger than it had been all evening, I just remembered something my father taught me a long time ago. He said that we're not here to see through each other, we're here to see each other through. Sophia clapped her hands together. I like that. Daddy, can Victoria come see my science project? I've been working on it for weeks, and it's about how all the planets need the sun to survive, just like how all people need each other. Marcus looked at Victoria questioningly. She nodded without hesitation. I'd love to see your project, Sophia. As they walked toward the community center together, the millionaire, the struggling father, and the 8-year-old philosopher, Victoria felt something she hadn't experienced in 20 years. She felt like she belonged. Not because of her wealth or her success or her power, but because she was choosing to be present, choosing to care, choosing to be human. The automatic doors of the community center opened, welcoming them into warmth and light, and Victoria realized she was walking away from the woman she'd been and toward the woman she was meant to be. Sometimes children ask the questions adults are afraid to answer. What's the most profound thing a child has ever said to you? How did their innocent wisdom change your perspective? The community center's main room buzzed with the comfortable chaos of childhood. Hand-painted murals covered the walls, rockets soaring through starfields, diverse families holding hands around a smiling earth, quotes about dreams and determination in both English and Spanish. Victoria had been in boardrooms worth millions, but none of them had felt as rich as this space where hope was cultivated on shoestring budgets and pure determination. Sophia's science project sat on a corner table, and Victoria found herself genuinely impressed. The 8-year-old had constructed a detailed solar system using painted foam balls, each planet carefully labeled with facts written in careful cursive. But what struck Victoria most was the handwritten essay attached. The sun gives life to all the planets, just like love gives life to all people. This is incredible, Sophia, Victoria said, kneeling to examine the work more closely. You did all this yourself. Sophia beamed with pride. Daddy helped with the hard words, but I did all the research at the library. Did you know that Jupiter protects Earth from asteroids? It's like a big brother planet. Marcus watched Victoria's face as she engaged with his daughter's project, seeing something he'd never expected, genuine interest, not the performative attention wealthy people usually gave to children before quickly turning to speak with adults. And what did you learn from making this? Victoria asked. That everything in space works together, Sophia said seriously. Even though the planets are really different, some are hot, some are cold, some are big, some are small, they all need each other to keep the solar system working right. It's like how people are different, but we all need each other too. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes again. This child understood something that had taken her decades to forget and was only now remembering. Sophia, you're absolutely right, Victoria said. Can I tell you a secret? Sophia nodded eagerly. I forgot that for a while. I thought I could be like a planet that didn't need any other planets, that could just exist by itself. But that's not how solar systems work, is it? Nope. Sophia said. A planet all by itself would just float around in the dark and cold. That sounds really lonely. It is lonely, Victoria whispered. Marcus cleared his throat. Sophia, why don't you pack up your project? We should let Victoria get home. But Victoria stood up, brushing dust from her expensive suit. Actually, Marcus, I was hoping. Would you and Sophia like to have dinner? There's something I'd like to do, and I could use some help. An hour later, they sat in a small diner 3 blocks from the community center. Victoria had initially suggested an upscale restaurant, but Sophia had shyly mentioned that she'd never been to Tony's diner and had always wondered what their pancakes tasted like. Victoria couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten anywhere without white tablecloths and wine lists. The pancakes were perfect. As Sophia carefully cut her stack into precise triangles, Victoria pulled out her phone. I need to make some calls, she said to Marcus. Business calls. But not the kind I usually make. She dialed her assistant first. Jennifer, I need you to cancel the Riverside Manor eviction. Yes, the family with 3 children. Find out what they owe and have accounting settle it. Consider it corporate charity. Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. Victoria's second call was to her head of acquisitions. David, the Morrison Bakery deal, I want you to reverse it. Yes, I know we already signed contracts. Find a way. Offer them double their asking price to stay and expand instead of selling. We'll call it community investment. Sophia watched this with wide eyes, syrup on her chin, somehow understanding that something important was happening even if she couldn't grasp the details. The third call was the hardest. Mom. Victoria said when Eleanor Ashworth answered on the first ring. It's me. I'm coming home. Tonight. I need to see Dad. Her mother's sob was audible even to Marcus and Sophia. Oh, honey. Oh, Vicky, he's going to be so happy. He never stopped believing you'd come home. I never stopped loving him, Victoria whispered. I just forgot how to show it. When she hung up, Sophia reached across the table and patted Victoria's hand with sticky fingers. Are you going to see your daddy? I am. Good. Daddies are the best. Victoria looked at Marcus, who was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You didn't have to do those things, he said quietly. Yes, I did, Victoria replied. I've spent so long being powerful that I forgot what it meant to be good. Your daughter reminded me. Victoria's going to help families like ours, isn't she, Daddy? Sophia said with the intuitive understanding children possessed. Marcus nodded slowly. I think she is. Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out a business card, writing something on the back before handing it to Marcus. This is my direct number. Call me tomorrow. Victoria, I can't accept charity. Not charity, she interrupted. Partnership. I'm restructuring my company's community outreach program, and I need someone who understands what families in this neighborhood actually need. Someone who won't let me lose sight of why I'm doing this. The salary is competitive, and there are benefits. Full health care, college fund contributions for Sophia. Marcus stared at the card as if it might disappear. You're serious? I'm offering you a job, Marcus. Director of Community Relations. You'd work with families facing eviction, help them find resources, make sure we're investing in communities instead of just extracting profit from them. Sophia bounced in her seat. Daddy, does this mean you won't have to drive strangers around anymore? Maybe, baby girl, Marcus said, his voice thick. Maybe. As they prepared to leave the diner, Sophia tugged on Victoria's jacket. Will we see you again? Victoria knelt down to Sophia's level. I hope so. I'd like to be your friend, if that's okay with you. Sophia threw her arms around Victoria's neck in a hug that smelled like syrup and childhood shampoo. I think the wrong car was actually the right car, she whispered. Victoria held the little girl tight, feeling pieces of her heart she'd thought were dead stirring back to life. I think you're right. Later, as Marcus drove Victoria back to retrieve her Mercedes, the rain had stopped and stars were beginning to emerge between the clouds. Thank you, Marcus said as they pulled into the parking garage. Thank you, Victoria replied. You gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. What's that? Victoria looked at her reflection in the passenger window, mascara smudged, hair mussed, expensive suit wrinkled from a child's embrace. She looked human. My soul, she said simply. As Victoria drove toward the airport to catch the last flight to Cleveland, she thought about the solar system Sophia had built, about planets that needed each other to survive, about the gravitational pull of love that kept whole worlds from spinning off into darkness. Her phone rang as she merged onto the highway. The caller ID showed Dad. This time, she answered. Hi, Daddy, she said, her voice full of tears and starlight. I'm coming home. Sometimes getting into the wrong car is exactly what we need to find our way back to ourselves. Victoria's story reminds us that no matter how far we drift from our values, it's never too late to choose love over fear, connection over isolation, and compassion over profit. What moment in your life made you realize you'd lost sight of what truly mattered? And more importantly, what brought you back? Share your story of unexpected grace in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that we're all just planets in the same solar system, meant to help each other shine. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that celebrate the power of human connection. Until next time, remember, we're not here to see through each other, we're here to see each other through.